Well, hello, my fellow car modelers. How are you doing today? I have got this kit here. It's from Salvinos JR Models. They put it out a few months ago. It is their first 80s Thunderbird, and it is the Bill Elliott cores. But what this video is about, everybody cries and sads and cries about colored plastic. I want to build an 87 Thunderbird that is white, and I'm going to use this body, and I'm going to show you and prove to you all that these days, with how they color these styrene, it's done with a pigment, not a dye like what we used to deal with, where we'd have a lot of bleed through. And we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to do a typical way of how I paint all my models, nothing special, and I'm going to show you when this is white, it's going to be white. Let's get all that out, and we're going to work on this thing. I'm going to do all my typical primering and sanding and all that stuff. And there's the hood. And we'll cut that off the tree there. And we're going to paint this thing white, okay? I'm telling you, it's going to be fine. It's not going to be pink. It's going to be white. All right, so we're going to take a real quick look over on this body of what I got to do first. We've got the nose here, the rear there, the hood there. There are a couple of 87 Thunderbirds I have wanted to do, and they're all white, and I'm not 100% sure yet what one I want to do. It's up between Alan Kowicki's car that he won his first race here at Phoenix in the 1988 Checker 500. That was our first race here in Phoenix. That's one that I've always wanted to build. Or I would like to build from this exhibition race that was put on where in 1991 during the fall speed weeks at Charlotte Motor Speedway, Humpy Wheeler put on a race called the Winston Legends Race. And they were going to do this every year, and they got fairly modern within the past few years. A bunch of old Cub cars, and they got all these old legends like Fred Lorenzen, Elmo Langley ended up winning the race. Richard Childress ran a car. Junior Johnson was in a car. All these old retired race cars at the time. It was a really cool race. It was just really cool how the cars looked, and it was just neat. They'd have them put up in their old livery. And so the Fred Lorenzen car was a 87-88 Thunderbird with all his old Holman and Moody Lafayette Ford livery on it. I have wanted to build that car also ever since I saw it on TV, and I just thought it'd be cool. A Fred Lorenzen, you know, at the time was kind of a modern car. Well, fairly modern, but now it's real old. But how cool that would be is to do this as a Fred Lorenzen car. So that's two ideas. Either way, I've got to paint this car white. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to get it down to just having the white base coat down to show you guys that we aren't going to have any problems with this red bleeding through. But I got to go looking over this body, a few things I got to work on it. I'm going to get, you know, all these parting lines sanded. I never understood why Monogram put these rivets around here. Might have saw it on a car. It's not too accurate. I'm going to probably sand all those off. I don't like those. And I got to get the nose glued on and probably all this filled. We got some sink marks here. You can see those. But I got to fill all that in to get rid of that line. So I got a lot of body work to do. I'm not really going to do all the back. I might body work that in a bit. I don't know. I have to look on the car. Sometimes those weren't really dealt with that much. There might be a little line, but we'll see. We'll get it to fit real nice. Of course, we got the hood here. Got a little bit of work to do on the hood to get rid of ejector pin marks. Just got two little, not really too bad, just on each side there. I'm going to get those gone. And I'm actually thinking, I don't know. what I want to totally go with, but at least we got to get this thing in white, and that'll be beneficial to this video that we're doing. So I'm going to get the body work all done, and we'll go through when I get the body work done, and then I'll show you when I get it in primer and how many times I primer and wet sand, all that stuff that we're going to do, and get this thing going and looking like a proper body in white, and it'll be white, not pink. I got this nose on the front of this 87, 88 NASCAR Thunderbird, and I want to seal up the joints, you know, that it leaves. And there's also, you can still see on this side, there's some sink marks right there. I've been working it because of this back here, and this is pretty thick plastic, and I just don't feel like using putty, because the putty I like I can't get a hold of, and I don't like the putty that I have. I'm really not a fan of this glazing spot putty, but it's the most accessible, and I try to avoid using it. And if you can see what I've got going here, this is one of the things why it's wet there, is I'm sanding. Well, first I glued it on. Let's start from the beginning. First I glued it on. I prepped both the nose side, you know, where they fit together. I prepped both sides, get them as flat as possible. And then when I glued them together, and I'm using nothing but Tamiya Extra Thin. I love this stuff, and I love the quick set. And this is why I love Tamiya Extra Thin, because it softens up the plastic. Now, I was having a conversation with my buddy and yours, BG. He gave me this idea, because this is something that he does. Do you see over here, when I got everything together, everything butt up really tight, and it was just a line we're working on. But over here I had a little gap, and I wish I would have showed you what I did, but you know, I took a bottle cap, I took a little bit of Extra Thin, I put it in the bottle cap, and I got a little piece of styrene. This is just a little strip, very thin little strip of styrene from Evergreen, and I dip it in, get it really soft, and I started working it into there. And then I took this tool here. It's kind of like if you ever seen the old process of leading back in the old hot rod days, you know, when they didn't use polyester body fillers. And I just started pushing it in, and I just, right there, you can see it, and I pushed it in, got it all smushed in there. And then I've been sanding with, this is about, I think 220 grit. I've been working 220 grit. The rest of it is that I do some sanding after I let that get all softened up. I've been sanding, and I've been sanding enough that you can see I'm getting rid of the sink mark that's over here without using the putty. So I'm just working in it, and then when I stop and I let the dust collect, and you know, whenever there's a line, the dust from the sanding will collect into that crack, into your crease. And then I would stop, and I would take a little bit of Extra Thin, and I'd dab it up and let that plastic, or styrene dust we should say, get into the crack and let it soften up and kind of fill into that. And then I'm going to get back to sanding, and I just keep on doing. I'm going to work it and, you know, play with it, and I've gotten rid of all, you know, it's really great about just sanding is I've gotten rid of all the parting lines that were in the body here and stuff like that. And that's what we're getting that all prepped. I have 3 of these in white, but I'm going to make this car white because, you know, I want to use their kit. I love this styrene, this high impact styrene, and I wanted to prove a point. I've dabbed some on there. It's kind of softened the plastic up. I'm going to put a little bit more on. And what I'm doing, and it's after I've done some sanding, so I'm letting some of the dust created from the sanding just stay there and kind of use that as some of the filler. I take an old razor blade or X-Acto knife. What I'm doing is, as it's softened it all up, I'm kind of just mushing the plastic together. I'm kind of taking some of that buildup that's from the dust getting all mushed up from the glue and getting all softened up, and I'm just working it all together. So see how it's kind of, see that right there? I'm using that and pushing all the styrene that's thickened up and I'm softened up, but getting all thicked up, and using that as the putty and pushing it into the cracks. And let's go ahead and get that all in there. And we're going to let this sit and hardened up. There's even a little bit. I'm going to take some of that excess and use it somewhere else. Put a little bit on there and on that. And I'm going to take that excess I built up right there, put it right into there. See, it's getting all gooey. Use that to our advantage. And there we go. Just using the styrene. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, you're just using sprue glue. Yeah, I've done the sprue glue thing, and I don't like it. I don't like making sprue glue. I figure, why not just use, while the thing is together, and just soften up the plastic and work it all together like that. I just didn't have good luck with the sprue glue, and it just seemed to take forever to set up. Here it's such small amounts, it seems to set up a lot faster when I just do it in small little amounts of just putting the extra thin quick set. And I really believe that it's quick set is the trick to getting this to work. So there, that's all there. I'm going to sand it in a little bit and we'll take a look at it. And probably the finalizing part of it is when I shoot my scratch filler primer that I like to use. Do a couple of primer coats and then sanding. We'll have that line gone. No putty. No worry about shrinkage this way. But you see, let's just do start sanding on this stuff. And that line is just disappeared. We're getting it gone. Again, this is 220 I'm using. This is just my rough in. And this is just a few minutes after I've laid out that glue and created all that excess styrene to smash into the joint. And it is just disappearing. Look at that. We're getting it gone. Let's do a lighter sand just to get a look here. We can see where we're going. It's definitely filling up. We still got some lines here and stuff, but I think a little more sanding, and of course we get down to the primer and the sand sessions. We'll have that all gone. I just got finished doing a prime session. I got a little bit of putty filling there. We did some sanding like we showed, a little filling with the big gaps with some styrene. We still got some filling to do. I'm going to be sanding this. Going to let this sit overnight. I used Duplicolor Sand Filler Primer I bought from O'Reilly's, and you can already tell there's no red showing here. I got a pretty bright white light over here. I'm going to get it a little closer. Let's really put some light on there and show you. So we're not seeing any bleed through at all. So we're going to get going with this and keep on sanding. I got some nubs in it, but it's about 3 coats I did. I did 1 light coat pass, and then I did a 2 heavy passes. Probably waited about 20 minutes in between each pass. I like to get it like that. Now I'm going to go tomorrow and I'm going to wet sand this all down. And I'm probably, before I start wet sanding, I'm probably going to put a little bit of putty. I just bought some new putty I want to try from Tamiya. It's the fine detail putty. It's supposed to be very, very smooth. And that should do the trick for me. And get this thing prepped to put the white paint on it. But you can see underneath where I went a little thin there. It's that red body. I'm not trying to cheat you guys. We're not having any bleed through. It's looking good. You usually can see it in this primer because this is a light gray primer. And if you're going to have any bleed through, you usually start seeing it during the primer. But the real truth will come when we put some white on here and it goes pink. Well then, there we go. But I don't believe we're going to have that. Alright, so I have got it primed and I don't see any sign of any red shining through. And to prove, this is the red body. I'm not doing the switcheroo. And I'm going to try to keep this red all the way through this process, so you'll know. I'm not doing no switcheroo of the body. Let's get that hood off so I don't drop it. So what we did is, like I've said in the past, this has been my go-to primer for three decades, really. Honestly, I love this stuff. It's the only stuff I use, but the main thing is, and I like the kind of the filler stuff. I do a lot of sanding. I'm going to show you why. But this right here, I'm telling you, it's the same stuff that you get from the Tamiya primers. The main thing is that it's a lacquer base. It's a lacquer base primer. You always want to use a lacquer base primer. Trust me on that.
How?
But how? What do you mean how?
I didn't do that.
You didn't know about lacquer base primers? Mm-hmm. Oh, you did? Say lacquer base. I can't even say it. Forget it. Lacquer base primer. Anyways, so here you go. There it is. And as we showed, we had some considerable gaps here where the and I still have a little. I'm going to have to do a little bit of work here, but we've got all the seams gone here in the where the nose connected to the body. And how I did that is I did all that body work. I did a lot of sanding after I did that filling that I showed, that I learned from BG. Love that technique. Beautiful technique. Got it shaped really well. I shot some primer on here. Did a little bit of wet sanding. I could see where I had still some considerable spots. And I have just started, for the first time I've used it, I'm using the Tamiya white putty. I wouldn't do big fills with this because it can shrink, but for spot putty and little just fill-in seams after you've filled the big gaps, I think this is going to work out really nice. It's almost, this is also lacquer based. You can thin it with lacquer. So this is basically just a thicker version of this. Now we got that. After I did that and did some wet sanding and getting that the Tamiya putty all dealt with on here, I went ahead and I did another coat of the primer. Comes out pretty thick, but not too thick. It really fills scratches and seams very well. Once I got that done, I let it sit overnight. I shot it last night. I let it sit overnight. I went ahead and wet sanded. I don't see right now any ghosting of the parting lines that I sanded. I think for good measure, I don't know, I still got some spots. This is not that critical of a model. I don't know. This one's kind of bothering me here. I might do a little bit of more putty work, and I see it got a little thin right there in the primer. I didn't get it there too well. I may work on this a little bit. Maybe do one more coat of primer and do a wet sand after that. And then we're going to put the white paint down on that. So next scene, white paint. You're watching the Luka C channel on YouTube. Well, there you have it. It's all painted. Everything's done. Might do a little color sanding on it or whatever, because this is Tamiya lacquer paints. I always like to buff it out a bit. Haven't 100% decided what direction I want to go, but as I was making this video, Mike's Decals made an announcement of doing the Alan Kowicki decal sheet to do the car that I had mentioned, although I still really want to do that Fred Lorenzen car. Good thing that a new 87, 88 Thunderbird's coming out from Salvinos JR Models. You'll be seeing that here real soon. Here we are. White paint over the red body. This is definitely the red body, and I'll show you the proof soon. Do you see any pink coming through? So let's take a closer look at this. Get it off the jack stands. That's always fun to do. Remove the body from the chassis. Let's take a look at this. Really good. You see that? And what I did here was, after we got it all primed and we've got all that body work done and that we showed, but you see right there, it's the red body. We got a little bit of runnage going on there. I can sand that out because it's, again, Tamiya lacquers. Not too unhappy with the paint. It's fairly smooth, but I was having some issues with this. But first, what I did was I put a coat of Tamiya TS101. That is the base coat, base white they call it, and that really helps to get everything, really good coverage to where when lots of times you shoot a yellow or a white, some of these colors, they tend to kind of retreat from edges, and you get kind of like always that, you see the primer or whatever color you painted over kind of show through on the edges. That TS101 will get rid of that. And that goes on, it seemed to not go on real smooth. I had a little issue with it. I've been having some problems with Tamiya spray cans lately, different problems with different types. And I put this on my Facebook group. There was like kind of a 3-part series, and I'll show you here in a moment what I showed on the Facebook group. That's Luka C Model Car Hobby Headquarters Facebook group. Link in the description below. The base coat, it was kind of rough. I did a little bit of wet sanding on it and get it smoothed out. I went to go shoot this on there, the TS26, that is pure white, and it came out blasting. I've never had this happen with Tamiya paints. It just blasted out. I just touched it lightly. I always will do my first pass of very light dusting, as I call it, coat. Tack coat is what we like to call it. Then about 10 minutes later, I will come over and I'll do a little bit heavier pass. After that, then I start putting on my wet passes. So I go in layers like that and get a little heavier. But the first pass, wham, that's pretty much right there, the first pass. And it got a little scary. You don't want that. You don't want to do that. I got very lucky with the body, but I got a little bit of solvent pop happening. But on the hood is where it was real bad. I had some very, very bad solvent pop right here, and I can buff that out. I'm going to sand it down. I'll probably reshoot this hood, but I've never had Tamiya do that. But I'm not going to get into it on this video. It was a very long discussion still going on over on the Facebook group. What this video is about is we have no pink coming through, none whatsoever. You can paint over colored bodies these days. The modern styrene, the modern use of pigments instead of dyes, you don't have that leaching. So why does it matter? Why do people get so polarized with the fact that a model kit was produced in color? But why does it even matter anymore? Red body, white paint, no problem, no bleed through. It was no harder. I had to put no more primer and base coat on here than if it was a white body. If this was a white body, I would have painted it exactly the same. So that is my story that I'm totally sticking to. Super white paint job. No pinky pink at all. You can see that right there. Just none. Not on the edges, none underneath, except there where the paint didn't get to it, because I had my holder right there, and I purposely wanted to do that. I'll probably end up painting that when I go to complete this model. Red body, white paint, no bleed through. We're done with that. We're closing that. I don't even want to see that complaint anymore.
Next, guys.
I just don't want to. It's just getting too old, and it's proven. It's moot at this point. So there's really no need to be upset about it. Who cares if the body, the kit, everything, all the parts are colored or if they're white? Because I got news for you. I've showed it on here. The raw styrene is a translucent milky color. So when you get a white kit, it's been colorized too. So there you go. We're done. I'm going to get back to my cold coffee. Look at that. I let it sit while I'm recording, and it just goes cold. All right, everybody. Well, go enjoy your models. We paint these things. We get frustrations. But all in all, it's still, well, yeah, fun. That's right. Model cars. That's why we do it. Because they're fun. Here's the producers.